Infamous deadly accident at New Texas giant roller coaster, the horrendous death of Rosa Esparza. There's always something magical about going to the amusement park. The excitement, the thrill, the fun rides, and the delicious food. A day in the amusement park is always fun for the whole family. Well, not always, as we're about to discuss in this video on our series about theme park disasters. Today's story is an example of a trip to the amusement park that ended in sorrow and tears for the family of one Rosa Esparza. First, let's establish our scene. We're at Six Flags over Texas in Arlington, Texas, a 212-acre amusement park, the first of the Six Flags franchise built just west of Dallas and home to some of the most impressive and dangerous attractions in the world. From its inauguration in 1961, the park was a success. In 1974, it already registered over 2 million yearly visits. The park was always known to the Texan community as a place for fun and adventure in over 40 rides the park offers, including its infamous Texas Giant. The Texas Giant is 14 stories high and boasts the world's steepest drop. The attraction was always one of the most requested one in any trip of the Six Flags over Texas, and it wasn't different for Rosa Esparza, her husband and her stepson, who decided to brave the attraction on the 19th of July 2013. Rosa was described by relatives, especially her son, as a daring, adventurous woman. That day, she chose to go to the amusement park and face the Texas Giant, a thrill ride notorious for its breathtaking drops and curves. Rosa was sitting behind her husband and her son-in-law on the ride. As she took her place on the cart, she reportedly told park staff that her restraints weren't properly fastened. We'll come back to this. After the ride got the go-ahead and started moving, Rosa, sitting behind her family, was reportedly panicking the whole time. The ride starts, as most roller coaster rides do, with a sharp climb up, and then the drop, followed by a series of loops and turns that exert significant force on the people riding the cart. When properly tied to the cart, the rides are fun and offer no significant risk. Unfortunately for Rosa, that wasn't the case that day. She fell to her death in one of the twists and turns of the ride. As the ride continued, her son and daughter, who were waiting for her at the end of the ride, were desperate to go get her, screaming, "My mom fell off, we need to go get her." Joshua Polfleet tweeted that he was sitting behind Mrs. Esparza on the same ride when he saw the tragedy unfold. "Literally just witnessed someone fly off the Texas Giant 2 seats in front of me," he tweeted. "Restraint came undone, coaster turned, and she was gone." Authorities searched the bottom of the roller coaster for 1 hour before locating Mrs. Esparza's body. She was dead on impact. We don't need to be graphic in respect to Mrs. Esparza's memory and her family. Suffice to say, on that fateful day, Mrs. Esparza's life was taken from her and the motives were yet unknown. Investigations began on the incident, trying to determine what would be the cause for the tragedy that befell Mrs. Esparza. At this point, we need to go back to the restraint discussion. When Rosa Esparza was fastened into her seat, she complained to staff that she wasn't properly fastened. On this much, all witnesses seem to agree. What happened next, however, is up for debate. One woman, Mrs. Carmen Brown, commented that after Mrs. Esparza had complained about the fastening, that a Six Flags employee had checked it and determined the equipment to be properly fastened. The computer that controlled the seats on the ride had confirmed Mrs. Esparza's seat as properly fastened, reports claimed. She was nervous and panicking, Mrs. Brown said. However, on an interview with CNN, a man named Ronald Segovia told CNN he did not hear his mother-in-law mention that her seat did not lock properly. Segovia also told CNN that Esparza was sitting by herself, contrary to initial reports that she was sitting beside her son. Her sons, according to Segovia, were not there. In this mix of conflicting reports, one thing is for certain. Miss Rosa Esparza unfortunately fell to her death on that fateful day, and her family's sorrow moved everyone. Her son, Amado Esparza, wrote a heartfelt goodbye post on Facebook at the time, commenting on the pain of his mother's passing and the incident of her death. "I've never discovered a day as long as this one," he wrote. "It's very sad that I lost my mom, but I'm happy that I was able to enjoy her to the maximum while she was alive." The park emitted a statement on the day of the accident. Quote, "We're deeply saddened to share that earlier this evening an adult woman died in the park while on the Texas Giant. Park medical staff and local paramedics responded immediately. Since the safety of our guests and employees is our #1 priority, the ride is being closed pending further investigation. Our thoughts and prayers are with the family and friends during this difficult time." But thoughts and prayers wouldn't even come close to cutting it. Someone had to be responsible. Someone had to pay. The family of Rosa Esparza sought damages against Six Flags over Texas, at least $1 million in a lawsuit filed last fall that alleges the park ignored dangers. Six Flags denied liability in the case and said it did not design or manufacture the ride. At the time of the lawsuit's testimony phase, the family of Mrs. Esparza wanted the judge to impose sanctions on the park for allegedly dragging its feet in the depositions and presenting difficulties to the hearing of testimonies. In its defense, the park alleged that the images of Mrs. Esparza's accident were too gruesome for the teenage employees to see, and that they weren't necessary to extract testimony from the workers. The legal battle further imposed hardship and sorrow on the Esparza family, who were particularly saddened to see that the death of Mrs. Esparza hadn't really been explained over a year later. A faulty restraint? Problems with the seat. They didn't want to be in this situation. If they could choose, the son and daughter of Mrs. Esparza would want their mother back. Her husband would want his wife back. Failing that, they wanted the next best thing. Justice. Justice for their mother, cruelly slain by equipment in an amusement park. A place meant for fun that took the life of their mother so easily and now denied them that closure, the due repair of the damages they suffered. A few months before the case went to trial in Fort Worth, Texas, the Six Flags Company and Gerstlauter Amusement Rides, the company that manufactured the Texas Giant, settled with the Esparza family out of court for an undisclosed amount. After months of debate pro-court, the parties chose to settle, with the Six Flag lawyer saying that, "We're thankful that all parties could agree on a settlement." The Rosa Esparza incident also brought forth a conversation about larger people in amusement parks whose seats are designed as a one-size-fits-all model. The discussion centered around making the rides of amusement parks more accessible to different people's bodies, not limiting the experience of the amusement park to just one type of person. After Rosa Esparza incident brought the issue to light with the unfortunate tragedy that befell Mrs. Esparza, the parks have been under pressure to make the rides more accessible to every person safely. What are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments section down below. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it interesting, dive deeply into the like and subscribe buttons. Let us know what you thought of it in the comments. See you again soon in another video if you dare.